words that relate directly to your topic. But you can also brainstorm synonyms to expand or narrow your search. If you're writing about threatened polar bears, here are some related words: global warming, wilderness, threatened endangered animals. You can also browse the shelves for relevant books. Instead of searching the catalog, you can just walk by and look at different books. Now, once you found a book with useful information, don't just read it, you should check the bibliography for other relevant information. What is a bibliography? Anyone want to tell me?
Bibliography, isn't it?
Bibliography, do you guys remember we kind of looked at some examples?
When? Isn't when somebody writes about himself?
A bibliography, actually, is a list of sources. That's pretty much all it is. So, a bibliography is a list of sources. Write that down because that's important. And the reason you want to check the bibliography... Go ahead.
Oh, it's a list of sources. I was repeating that because our picture covers up part of that where it says list.
Oh, okay.
We have like a little picture of us on the thing.
Yeah. Okay, so a bibliography is a list of sources, and bibliography is a list of sources. Why would it be important to check the bibliography in a book?
You know why it would be important? Why would it be important to check the list of the bibliography?
The list of sources.
For plagiarism, Stephen said. So you won't get okay. Maybe because you want to, if you're researching, you want to know that the person who, has used those books was using reliable sources.
Yeah, so let's say you're reading a book about frogs, and the bibliography only lists one source, and it is a website which is about let's say, Florida retirement. So if this book about frogs has a bibliography which lists only one source, and that is a website which is about Florida retirement and has nothing to do with frogs, then you would want to ask yourself, is this accurate or not? Another thing is that if the bibliography has lots of sources that relate to the topic, then you can use the bibliography as a jumping off point. You can look at this list of books and think, okay, maybe I'll get some of these. Now, if the subject of your research relates to current events, so if it's about news, something that happened really recently, then it can be helpful to search an index of periodicals. That means newspapers, magazines, if you want to get kind of archival stuff. Now, using an index is another helpful thing. So if you have like a book that's this huge, then using an index can help you find what you're looking for. So an index is an alphabetical reference list giving the location of where a topic is in the book. So if I have a book that's really big, there will probably be an index. I can go there and it'll have the list of topics. I can find the page. So books are organized in two broad categories, as you already know: nonfiction and fiction. Now, the reason this is important is because nonfiction is cataloged under the Dewey Decimal System or the Library of Congress classification system, and fiction is cataloged under the author's last name. So, at your local library, is the nonfiction cataloged under the Dewey Decimal System?
No. We have that, but we also have it in your computer system.
Okay, great. So, this is what the Dewey Decimal System is. So it's basically a bunch of numbers that have been organized, the Library of Congress system, and that's obviously used in the Library of Congress. Now that we've learned a little bit about print sources, you can use a catalog, index, bibliography, and search in a catalog. So hopefully you guys have gotten the hang of that. Then we're going to move on to researching from online sources. So raise your hand if you do a lot of research on the internet. I see a lot of raised hands, so it's important to know which websites are good and which ones are not. So, here's a breaking piece of news. Did you know that Britney Spears was killed in a car accident? Or that robots were used to win the Spanish-American War of 1898? Do you think this is true? Raise your hand if you believe me. I see some brave souls that raise their hands. Okay, well, for all those of you who think I'm lying, it has to be true. I found it on the internet. Well, of course, as some of you may have heard, not everything on the internet is true. So, if not everything on the internet is true, what do you think? Should we still use the internet for research?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think the internet is like the world. There are some good places and there are some bad places. If we said, if not every place on the world is good, why are we still living here? We would be on Mars by now. So the internet is kind of like the world, some good places, some bad places. Now, research is the search for information that allows us to create informed essays, rich stories, winning science projects, and colorful blogs and web pages. We research to discover facts, like Mexican bandit and revolutionary Pancho Villa was born in Durango, Mexico. So that's how I picked off the internet. Once we have the facts in place, we research more to add detail to our project. For example, Mexican bandit and revolutionary Pancho Villa was born in Durango, a state of craggy mountains and gorgeous blue skies. Now, if you follow basic safety rules and learn how to spot tricksters, the internet can provide amazing photographs, source documents such as journal entries and letters, and treasure troves of accurate information. So tip number 3 is your most basic and important tool is your search engine. What does a search engine do? Or does anyone want to tell me how do they search the web?
You go to Google. Oh, Brenda, say that again. You go to Google.
Yeah, you go to Google, and
Google just one.
that is just one search engine. Who would like to tell me some other search engines?
Yahoo.
Yahoo? That's one. What's another one? Ask.com. And another one?
No, Bing.
Bing. Oh yeah, so that is that is a relatively new search engine. They used to be when it was live, I remember. Yeah, so Bing, Google, Yahoo, Ask, those are all search engines. And so search engines are kind of your portal of the web. They allow you to find websites that you might not otherwise jump onto. So Google is the most famous search engine. Other search engines, the ones we all guessed, include Yahoo, Bing, Ask.com. But even if you choose the right search engine, it doesn't guarantee that you'll immediately find all the information you need. Because if you type a word into Google, you're going to get like 1-something billion responses. And so let's pretend that you are writing a research paper about Paris, France, and the French Revolution. So I am writing a research paper about Paris, France, and the French Revolution, let's pretend. So what I'm going to do is go to, let's say, Google, because that is conveniently my home page. And I'm going to search Paris. Now, if I search Paris, what do you think is wrong with searching Paris?
People can come up. It's not specific enough.
Giovanni said people can come up. Like
Yes.
Paris.
Paris Hilton, as you can see, there's already a picture of her. So sure, there are pictures of the Eiffel Tower, but I've also got Paris Hilton and the Paris Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Yes, there's actually a fake Eiffel Tower there too. The Economic Development Corporation in Paris, Texas. Okay, so I'm not giving much information about the French Revolution. As you can see, it's not very specific. Now, here's tip number 4. Narrow your search. As you guys told me, it's not specific enough. So from Paris, I could go to Paris, France, get Paris Hilton out of there. And from Paris, France, I might do Paris French Revolution. And that would give me some more specific results. If I wanted to get even more specific, I could do like Paris French Revolution, put in a date. Now, here is a fun thing to do. If you would like to return results from a specific site, so let's say you really love pbs.org or history.com, then you can type in your search word, so French Revolution, obviously, and then you add site, :pbs.org. So if you want to return results only from one website, you can put site pbs.org or site history.com. And so that is a fun one for Google that you can do. Is search a specific site using the site, blank, whatever your site is. And you don't even have to type a specific website. You could just do site.edu if you want to return results from university websites, or site.org if you want to return results from organizations. So tip number 5 is you can also try searching a trusted website such as pbs.org or Britannica Encyclopedia, and one way you might do that is type in the site thing in Google. Some other good websites to research include NPR, the BBC, and NOAA. Does anyone want to guess what NOAA is? N-O-A-A.
I don't.
Noah's Ark.
No, actually, I know, I love the pronunciation, but it has nothing to do with Noah's Ark. It is actually the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And what NOAA is if you type in noaa.gov, or I think that's what it is, then, and you can type in your city and it'll give you the weather. It's kind of cool. Anyway, so that one's good for research on like weather and stuff. So what is a website that you know and trust that you use a lot for your research? Any ideas? What is a website that you know and trust that you use a lot for research?
MySpace.
You use MySpace for research? You know what, if you're using social networking sites for research, do you mean like asking your friends or something?
Yeah.
I guess you could say this. If you're doing a research paper on your friend, then you might be able to glean some information from, let's say, their profile. But another thing is that, like, my sister, she always changes her profile so that it says that she's married to someone and these people are their kids, and so some of the information might be kind of like made up. Yeah, but if you were doing research on a person, that might be handy. But what are some websites that you might use, like going to for about science and history, for example?
Wikipedia.
Adora.
I'm sorry?
Wikipedia.
Okay, so a lot of people do use Wikipedia. When you're using Wikipedia, make sure to be careful that all the facts line up. You might want to confirm that on another website just because it is editable by anybody, so that's how you be careful. Now, once you find a web page or article that contains information that may be useful to you, it's time to play detective. So a good detective runs background checks on people involved in a case. As a researcher, you'll want to do the same. If you find a good web article, you might want to try typing the author's name into a search engine or looking on Amazon.com to see if they've written any books about your topic. So here's some strategies. You could try clicking on the author's name to see if they have a bio, or type the author's name in a search engine and see what comes up. So let's see. I found this article about the cuisine of Mexico by Karen Hirsch-Graber. So I can click on her name, and it'll take me to this profile, Karen Hirsch-Graber, Senior Food Editor for Mix Connect. So now I go to Google, and I can type in Karen Hirsch-Graber, and it will give me Karen Hirsch-Graber Menu and Consulting, Karen Hirsch-Graber Author in Mexico. So why would I want to do that research? Any ideas? Why would I want to type in Karen Hirsch-Graber? Why would I want to do that extra work? Oh, why would I want to type in Karen Hirsch-Graber? Why would I want to do that extra work? No, actually, the reason I typed in Karen Hirsch-Graber was because I was kind of running a background check. I wanted to see whether Karen Hirsch-Graber had written other stuff about food or about Mexico so that I would know whether she was a good source, a good author to be referencing. If you find an article that you think is pretty good, you might want to also try researching whoever wrote that article to see if they've written other stuff on the topic. So that's tip number 6, investigate the author. If your author has a common name, you could type the author name in the area of expertise. Tip number 7 is investigate the website. Why do you need to do all this stuff? To make sure it's right. Yeah, exactly. Because if you are going to be writing a research paper for school, then you will need everything to be correct, and you will need your sources to be correct. So here are some of the websites as well. PBS, Library of Congress, BartlebyDictionary.com. Those are all great websites. Now, tip number 8 is websites created by organizations or people that are unfamiliar to you are more questionable. If you're not familiar with them, if you haven't heard of them, it might be something that you wanted to do extra research on. So here are some questions to ask while investigating a website. 1. Is the grammar and punctuation correct? Why should a website's grammar and punctuation be correct? What does that have to do with whether the information is accurate?
What if you spell to give you wrong information about someone else?
Yeah, if it's wrong grammar and punctuation, if the people don't care about the grammar and punctuation, they might not care about the facts either. Especially if you're going to be quoting something, then it should be said where the grammar and punctuation is correct. Does the information match what you already know? So, if you know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, I'm hoping you know that anyway, and you go to a website that says 2 plus 2 equals 7, so the information should match what you already know. If you know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, and you go to a website that says 2 plus 2 equals 7, then you're going to think, this website might not know what they're talking about. Has the website been updated recently? Why is it so important? Why would the website being updated matter?
To make sure that you're not getting late information. Something that has to be constantly updated. Like a TomTom.
So let's say I'm doing research on the 2008 presidential campaign. If I'm doing research on the 2008 presidential campaign, I type that in, and I get a website that was last updated in September of 2008. What might be wrong with the information I get there? Well, if I were doing research on the 2008 presidential election, and I went to a website that was last updated in September 2008, then that website would not tell me who got elected. That website would not necessarily tell me what happened in the last leg of the campaign, and so that would probably not be the greatest website to use. What are the organization's goals? So if you're searching for pet food and you go to IAM's Pet Food, what is IAM's Pet Food trying to do? Sell you pet food. Yeah, exactly. So when you're doing research, you want to go to a website that is not trying to sell you stuff in general, so that you get the right information. Does the website include sources, like a bibliography or footnotes that tells where the web authors obtain their information? Remember what we said about books. It's the same for internet websites. You want to make sure their sources are relevant and correct. Now, the About or About Us section of a website can provide important clues about an organization's goals. So why is it important to understand organizations' goals when researching on the web? What do you think?
Important to understand an organization's goals. Researching, I'm going to rephrase that for them. IAM's purpose is probably to convince you their pet food is the one you want to buy, so that their purpose is to persuade you that's their goal. Whereas maybe a veterinarian writing about IAM, his research is to give you the best information and help you make the best choice and the right pet food.
Yeah.
The question is, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, yeah, that's.
They just pointed out I can rephrase the question. That's all.
Oh no, that's exactly how it is. Because if you're researching pet food, you go to IAMS, they're trying to sell you pet food, so they're going to say IAMS is so great. If you go to a university website or a veterinarian's website who's talking about IAMS pet food, their goal is not to sell you IAMS pet food, but to inform you, to let you know whether it's good or not. So that would be more reliable. It's important to understand organizations' goals when you're researching on the web. In other words, knowing whether they're trying to sell you stuff or whether they're trying to actually genuinely inform you. It's important to know that because it tells you what the information is going to be like and whether it's going to be right. Now, there are many reasons to create a website. People create websites to provide information, sell products or services, entertain, convince, or sometimes all of the above. So here's an activity. Let's take a look at a website called All About Explorers. So imagine for a second that we're going to be doing research on an explorer. So I'm going to go to allaboutexplorers.com. There we go. It's a nice little website, everything you've ever wanted to know about every explorer who ever lived. So let's head to Explorers A to Z. Which explorer should we do? Christopher Columbus. Okay, that sounds great. So let's hit Christopher Columbus and let's see what it says. It says, Christopher Columbus was born in 1951 in Sydney, Australia. His home was on the sea and Christopher longed to become an explorer and sailor. However, as a young man, Christopher went to Portugal and got involved in the map-making business with his brother Bartholomew. Let's see. In 1942, he set sail with 3 ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, and about 90 men. The voyage was so much easier than sailing east. On October 12, 1942, Columbus landed on an island southeast of Florida. He claimed this land for Spain and named it the Indies since he thought he landed in India. He named the native people of the land Indians. The Indians were excited by the newcomers and their gadgets. They especially enjoyed using their cell phones and desktop computers. Columbus returned to Spain in 1939 and was hailed as a hero. He was known as the first person to walk on American soil. A huge parade was held in his honor. He appeared on Larry King Live and became quite famous around the world. What is wrong with this article?
It is wrong.
It is wrong.
It is wrong. Yeah, that's basically it. So, for one thing, Christopher Columbus was not from Australia, and he was not born in 1951. If he were born in 1951, the world would be a little different. And then in 1942, he set sail. I could be wrong, but I don't think you can set sail before you are born. And then he returned from his journey in 1939. Unless Columbus was some mighty time traveler, then I don't think that's quite possible. Yeah, and then Larry King Live, I'm pretty sure. He's old, but not that old. So, moving on. Remember what I said about the About or About Us section can be pretty handy? Well, let's head to About and see what All About Explorers said. All About Explorers was developed by a group of teachers as a means of teaching students about the internet, and scroll down a little bit and it says, because we wanted to make a point about finding useless information even in a site which looked at first to be fairly well put together, all the Explorer biographies here are fictional. So, there we go. About or About Us told us what we needed to know. And if you want to learn more about a website or its goals, the About or About Us section can be a good one to look at. So, getting back to the presentation. Now, domain names such as .org and .com can help us decipher a website's purpose. How do they help us do that? How do .org, .com, what does that let us know about a website?
What kind of website it is?
What kind of website it is, what it's trying to do? Yeah. So, here's an activity. Guess the domain suffix. Yeah. So, let's see. .edu, that's pretty easy. That's education. .com, does anyone know what .com stands for?
Commercial.
Commercial, yeah, very good. Because it's like companies and stuff, so commercial. .org, what does .org stand for?
Organization.
Organization, yeah. So, non-profits, all those we use for .org. What about .gov? Government, yeah. And here's a kind of challenging one. What about .mil?
Military.
Military, yeah, exactly. And that is used by the Department of Defense. So, there you go. Now, what does this tell you about the website? So these usually match up with some goals. If you go to a .edu website, an education website, that would be a university. That university is usually trying to give you information, it's trying to help you learn, so that goal might match yours pretty close. A commercial website typically is trying to sell you stuff or make money from advertisement. .org or organization websites are nonprofits. They might have good information and they're probably trying to teach you something. But another thing to think about is whether the organizations are trying to sway you in favor of their organization. So let's say an organization that promotes putting leashes on dogs would probably be trying to tell you to put leashes on your dog. So that would be their goal. Government websites probably tell you information about the government. It might also be raise awareness about government programs, etc. Military. What do you think would be the goal of maybe a military website like the Department of Defense?
Recruiting people.
Yeah, it might be. It might be to give you information on the military. It might be to recruit people for the military. So yeah, that would be a very good point. So another one I didn't mention is .net. .net stands for network. It might be used by internet service providers, web hosting companies, and it might also be a business. .biz, B-I-Z, is used for small business websites. .info is a resource website. So those are some I didn't mention. Now, to wrap up, tips for online research. Narrow your search. Paris is going to turn up Paris Hilton, Paris Casino, so do Paris France, Paris French Revolution. Search trusted websites that you know and like. Investigate the author, run background checks. Investigate the website. So all about explorers, for example, go to the about to find out more. Unfamiliar websites might be more questionable, and use domain names to give you clues about content. So .org, .com, .gov, that can tell you a lot. Verifying online information. Like the authors of print content, authors of online content might be biased. What does bias mean? Any ideas? Bias, well, this little image here is of a scale, and one scale is kind of heavier than the other. When you're biased, it means you're leaning toward one side. So my sister and I have a really big argument, which we do all the time, and we're fighting, and then my mom walks over and is like, Adora, you are so great. I can't believe Adrian is even arguing with you. Man, I wish she would do that. But no, that would be biased. She would be biased in favor of me. Actually, she might be a little. But it can be easier to create and distribute false content on the web because it's easy to create a website or a blog or whatever, and you can just put fake stuff on there if you really want to, than it is to publish a book on a topic. If you want to publish a book on fake stuff, that is much more expensive and much more difficult. So, now for evaluating sources of information. Why do you need to evaluate your sources of information?
That's a duty, that's right.
Like, you kind of look at it and weigh it and see if you believe it or believe it's good. Yeah. Evaluate is another word for judge. It's like if you're evaluating it, you might say, this is not really, this information doesn't count. Maybe change that.
So evaluating source of information is something you need to do in order to make sure that it's correct, that it's not biased. So take a look at the source. Is the writer qualified? So do that background check. What about timeliness? So current event. If you're researching the presidential campaign in 2008 and you go to a website that was last updated in September 2008, that might not be the most recent. Bias. Here's where it wouldn't go. So on the web, you can sometimes identify bias by looking at domain suffixes. So if something's a .com website, you know they're going to be in favor of their own product. And another cool thing you can do is identifying bias by looking at advertisements on a web page. So let's say a software company has a web page, and there's big advertisements for, let's say, Dell computers on all sides. And then they're writing an article about the best computers ever, and Dell is the best computer. What might be wrong about that information?
That's a lie. Dell is not the best. Our opinion.
Yeah, that might be. Okay. But aside from the information, the fact that they would have ads for Dell on either side might indicate that the article that they got paid by Dell for writing the article. Or HP or so any other kind of computer. But I don't want to be too brand specific. But anyway, bias is where if you get paid to do something, saying that would be biased. And also, if let's say the author of the article has a mom who works for Dell, that would be maybe some bias. So when you become like if any of you are looking into going into justice, being a judge or on a jury, you don't want to have any bias. You don't want to be leaning one way or the other. And it's kind of the same on the web. When you're using an organization's website, stay aware of any bias that organization might have. Biased information is information that's selected to convince you to accept and support an idea, a person, or a product. Now, this said, a biased website might still provide useful information. So, for example, the White House website might provide only good information about Obama, but it would also be a good place to find the president's birthday, college he attended, name of cabinet members, all that. So be sure to get information that represents more than one perspective. Purpose. Ask yourself, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to sell me stuff? Are they trying to report current events, to advance knowledge? Find purposes that match your own. Now, when you are reading or doing a website, you might want to copy the name of the website into a Word doc, or on a text card you can write stuff down. Create a text card to include the author's name, title, source, and you can do this all in Word as well. For a website, the URL, and maybe even date you access the page. Another thing you can do is read general, introductory sources first, lay the foundation, then get more specific and read some more specialized technical stuff, rephrase the, if you want to have it in your own words, be sure to paraphrase. Now, citing your sources. Has anyone cited their sources using like MLA formatting or APA formatting? Do you have some practice with that? Raise your hand if you do.
We have not had any practice with that at all, but the MLA format is what we will use when we're writing our career papers.
Okay, MLA formatting. So definitely, formatting and the citing your sources is one of the most important parts of a research paper, aside from the actual writing. The research paper, you need to cite because there's something unfortunate called plagiarism, which is using another person's work without giving them credit. So if I take something off the web, I just copy it and I drop it into my research paper like it was my own words, that would be plagiarism. So always give your source for quotations. If you're copying something exact, then you need to put quotes around it to show that it's not you who's saying that. If you are summarizing something from a website, it's not common knowledge, cite that. Paraphrased information. What does paraphrasing mean?
Putting in your own words.
Using your own words.
Yeah.
Yeah, putting in your own words. And then always give your source for facts that are not common knowledge. So you probably don't need to give your source for, say, President Obama is the President of the U.S., but you would need to give your source for something less known. So ideas, including opinions and thoughts about what particular facts mean. If someone is analyzing or saying this means that and this is a result of that or whatever, you need to give your source that maps, charts, graphs, data, visual or statistical information. So some examples of plagiarism would be copying a classmate's lab report, buying an essay on the internet, copying a poem and saying that you wrote it. So after copying words from a source, even if it's temporary, just put quotes around it to remind you that you got it from someone else. Alright, so we have pretty much wrapped up the presentation now. Who would like to tell me one thing they've learned about research? Print research, online research, citing your sources, whatever.
Brenda and Ian.
Steven. That not everything on the internet is true.
Not everything on the internet is true, yeah. Who else would like to tell me citing your learn? I'm sorry?